Last year, Ford's electric Mustang Mach-E outsold its gas-powered counterpart for the first time, and it's only continued to show strong sales this year. The shift demonstrates a clear change in consumer preference, and it's a grim reality considering the Mustang's place as one of the last American muscle cars. Of course, this isn't the first time that one of a Ford Intermediates has outsold the pony car. In fact, even during the heyday of the first-generation Mustang, there was another model that proved more popular still. Combining style, performance, and versatility, this car appealed to a diverse spectrum of buyers. Its availability in several body configurations, hardtop, fastback, and convertible, further broadened its reach. Nevertheless, Ford ended production in 1970, after which the model's presence within the Blue Oval portfolio disappeared. We're here to recognize it for its achievements and appreciate it for the performance that it offered as a mid-size Ford muscle car. The Ford Torino even outsold the Mustang. Although the Mustang gets most of the spotlight when it comes to discussions of classic Ford performance vehicles, the Torino actually surpassed its sales numbers starting in 1970. In fact, from then on, Ford's Torino production all but eclipsed that of the Mustang. Factoring in the sedan, hardtop, fastback, Brougham, GT, Cobra, and wagon variants, Ford's midsize lineup outsold the pony car by more than 2-to-1 in 1971. By 1972, the gap widened even further, with the Torino achieving nearly 4 times the sales of its Mustang stablemate. Of course, even with engine options ranging from a pedestrian 145 horsepower inline-6 to a fire-breathing 375 horsepower Cobra Jet V8, the Mustang was a much more specialized vehicle. Ford offered just 3 main body styles: coupe, fastback, and convertible, compared to the Torino, which came in 2-door, 4-door, hardtop, fastback, station wagon, convertible, and pickup cases. The model might have debuted as a premium variant of the Ford Fairlane in 1968, but it was so well received that it replaced the nameplate altogether for trim, powertrain, and accessory options after 1970.
A Ford midsize to rival the Chevelle.
Beyond its sales performance relative to the Mustang, the Torino, named for Turin, a city known as the Detroit of Italy, is significant in that it allowed Ford to finally bring the fight to the Chevrolet Chevelle. Chevrolet's midsize muscle car was an absolute sensation among the American public, as sales had grown from 387,119 cars starting in 1964 to a staggering 633,944 by 1970. Even the Mustang's best year, 1966, trailed that figure at 607,568 units. Come 1972, however, Ford's redesigned Torino turned the tide, outselling Chevrolet at 496,642 cars to the Chevelle's 450,842. As power waned and insurance rates increased, the Blue Oval's midsize had staged an upset. The Ford Torino offered midsize Ford performance. If you want an economical grocery getter, you can get Ford's Torino with an inline-6, but we'll be sticking with V8s as they offer more exciting performance. 1970 brought the pinnacle of output for the Blue Oval's midsize, with the base 429 cubic inch 385 series V8 making a stump pulling 480 pound-feet of torque, and the top-spec Super Cobra Jet 429 laying down 370 horsepower. Of course, Ford's Cobra Jet engine is widely known for being underrated. It's possible that Torinos were posting 400 horses or more. In a 1970 review, Motor Trend compared everything from the Torino 351 up to the Torino Cobra, awarding the Ford its honor of Car of the Year. In the case of the former, testers found that the 351 was good for an 8.7 second 0 to 60 mile per hour time and a 16.5 second quarter mile. When it came to the Cobra, however, the Torino laid down an impressive 5.8 second 0 to 60 mile per hour sprint and a 13.99 second quarter mile at 101 miles per hour. Ford designed the Talladega to cheat the wind. In addition to the more commonplace base Torino GTs and Cobras, Ford offered several desirable special edition variants like the Talladega, the Twister Special, and the Type NW. While each of those models received powerful engine upgrades and eye-catching graphics packages, the Talladega stands apart because of its distinctive design and race-bred specialization. A Ford born from the Aero Wars. Back in the 1960s, Ford and Chrysler were busy battling it out on the oval for NASCAR superiority, and they were looking for any kind of competitive advantage. For 1969, Dodge was determined to improve its standing, and they fired the first shot in the Aero Wars with the introduction of its wind-refined Charger 500. Not long after, Ford responded in the form of the Torino Talladega, a car that improved the aerodynamics of the standard Torino body style with the considerably elongated front nose, unique rockers, and slippery bumpers. The car proved a dominant force during that season, winning 11 races in a row. Ford supposedly named the car in an attempt to win over NASCAR founder Bill France, as he'd opened a track in 1969 that we know today as the Talladega Superspeedway. Ford Torino Talladega performance specs. However, as it was the case with the Dodge Daytona and Plymouth Superbird, NASCAR recognized the Torino's aerodynamics abilities. A ban in 1970 effectively prohibited aero cars from competition, and the Torino Talladega was no longer eligible to race. In order to homologate the model for 1969, Ford built approximately 754 cars, so those that survive are highly desirable items among passionate Torino collectors. Between their Cobra Jet power plant and limited production status, they fetched well over six figures at auction. Ford almost made a beaked NASCAR competitor. In an attempt to field an even more aerodynamic competitor to go up against the Dodge Daytona and Plymouth Superbird, Ford took a 1970 Torino sports roof and added a large single-piece nose cone, dubbing it the King Cobra. 3 prototypes were built, featuring a Boss 429, a 429 Super Cobra Jet, and a 429 Cobra Jet, and tested at Daytona to verify their 200-mile-per-hour capabilities. Despite the King Cobra's immense potential, it was plagued by handling problems due to an imbalance of front-end downforce and rear-end lift. The project was ultimately scrapped as NASCAR changed its homologation requirements from 500 to 3,000 cars, and Ford eliminated its racing programs due to budget cuts. How much a Ford Torino GT costs today? If you're looking to get your hands on one of Ford's performance-oriented Torinos, the good news is that they were produced in enormous quantities. During the Torino GT's 4-year run, just under 350,000 examples rolled off the line. In practice, this means that they make for attainable American classics, and you'll find that more common base engine options like the 302 and 351 can easily be had for under $50,000. We've included values below for GTs equipped with such power plants, as they offer a more generalized representation of Torino value compared to less selected upgrades like the 390 and 429. Values are pretty consistent for Torino GTs year to year, but you'll find that the 1970 commands a slight premium. Ford redesigned the car for the second generation after 1969, and the tightening of emissions regulations and rising insurance rates meant that power started to drop off in 1971. Assuming that you're interested in a GT equipped with a Cobra Jet V8, Hagerty's valuation tool estimates a 1970 in good condition to be worth $45,800, while the 1971 in good condition comes to $37,100. While this means that they're valued a fair bit more than 351 engine cars, they still come out to be cheaper than a full-fledged Torino Cobra. Hagerty's valuations are generally a little conservative, but with patience there are deals to be had on the Ford Torino. For instance, the last 2 auctions to close on Bring a Trailer went for a fair shake less than the above valuations, as each car was in need of some attention. Even still, this 1969 model with Cobra graphics made for an impressive example of originality at $28,500. And this yellow 1970 model featured louvers and a coveted 4-speed manual at $53,500. Being less appreciated than the Ford Mustang, the Torino is desirable among those in the know, but auctions have the potential to level the playing field.